Welcome to the Fishbowl Radio, everybody. My name is Chief here, and joining me today is Jalen. We're doing our Louisiana Ragin Cajun Lafayette Regional preview here for Louisiana Ragin Cajun softball, and the Louisiana Ragin Cajun baseball team needs to win one game to clinch the outright regular season Sun Belt Conference title. So, without further ado, let me introduce everybody to my co-host here, Jalen. How you doing today, Jalen?
I'm doing well, Chief. Like I said, as I usually say, but this time, for real, it's a great day to be a Raging Cajun. Woo, woo! Let's go, softball team, Lafayette Regional. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so we've covered this since the beginning of the tournaments and how we thought they would break down and how this would actually go here. We were able to say, look, is his resume good enough? It should be good enough, what we thought they needed to do to get to that point there. So um we were on it. So we figured they would host. We figured LSU would host. It would have been a disservice for either one of those teams to go travel to the other one. So, I mean, look, it worked out in both teams' favor. They're both hosting here, mentioning LSU and Louisiana Ragin Cajun. So, luckily, they're not both in the same region. Now, that was getting kind of boring. I know after a while it gets that kind of way here. So, the four teams in the Lafayette Regional is Princeton, Baylor, and Ole Miss. So, how it's going to break down here, the Cajuns are going to play Princeton on Friday. They'll either get Ole Miss or Baylor. We're going to predict who we think they're going to face in that matchup there. And then, winner of the loser's bracket out of, let's say, if the Cajuns would be Princeton, and let's say Ole Miss would be Baylor, they'll play each other. Then they'll play the loser of that undefeated game, the 1-0 game, and then they'll play each other. So that's how it goes in these regionals, double elimination, which it's going to be the one question I have for you, Jalen, is what we've seen over the years with the Louisiana Ragin Cajun softball team is they'll get to a certain stage. Like last year, they beat LSU to go to the play against Washington in that super regional where they, didn't score any runs. They looked like the moment was kind of almost too big for them in a certain way. Now they got a year of a lot of where the teams that are juniors now or sophomores, that number one recruiting class that Gary Glasgow had several years ago is now juniors. Is this the year that they finally break that? It's almost been 10 years since they've been to OKC. It's, to the Women's College World Series. Do they get back there this year, Jalen?
I do think so, Chief. They get back this year. I think they're going to win the Lafayette Regional, then go on, and then they have to go to, let's say, if Florida wins, which I expect Florida to win the Gainesville Regional, then they have to take a trip to Gainesville. I think this is the year. Like you said, a lot of those girls on the team were sophomores, a couple of freshmen who keep a lot of key pieces. And I think you got like Alexa Langolier is another year under her belt. Maya Davis another year under her belt. Pitching, Sam Landry's pitching has gotten better over the course of her years at UL. So I think this is the year for this team. They have all the momentum. Jerry Glasgow set them up perfectly with the schedule they had. They beat teams like Oklahoma. They beat the same Baylor team in the first game of the series, the beginning of this softball season, if people remember. Um, they played an Ole Miss team last year. So I mean, I think the way it's set up for the Cajuns, I think this is their opportunity to make it to that World Series.
So, we mentioned all this here. Is it it's almost like if you don't get to OKC, where do we go from here, right? Because is the moment too big for you as a program, right? Because look, they've been to OKC. Gary Glasgow's never been to OKC. He made his first super regional last year. Is it too much to ask for them to actually get to that point? I mean, look, they had, Michael Lateef for so many years, and him and his wife were, in that co-head coach kind of situation there where they were able to get to a lot of these World Series here. So it's kind of wondering okay, look, is it the moment too big for you? And how do you address that? Now, look, there's always going to be critics and there's going to be doubters about it. I think the Cajuns could have the potential to make it that far. I even said that in the preview. They have a chance. It's It's there, but you have to learn in your losses how to overcome those big moments there. So last year should have been when they went to Washington, like, look, we lost. Okay. What did we not do right this year? So when we get back to this point, we know what we have to do to get the job done when we go back there next year. They know they won a regional last year. They went to Baton Rouge, knocked off LSU, and they were able to get to play Washington at Super Regional, which they almost had that Super Regional in Lafayette if McNeese wouldn't have blew a lead late in the game. Now, look, I'm not blaming McNeese for the Cajuns not hosting a Super Regional, but if it's just like moments like that, like you're watching someone literally crumble under the pressure because like you're right there, you have like literally McNeese, I think had to get like 1 out or 2 outs last year, and they just they blew it basically. Like it just was too much for them. Cajuns go there to Washington, didn't produce anything. So those are learning experience that you'll learn as a player and develop, right? So when you get to that point, it's going to make or break you. You either understand that this is the way it is. Like in that Oklahoma game when they won it, the Cajuns should have lost that game because they were making some errors to let Oklahoma get back in the game. That stuff cannot happen in this kind of the margin for error in these regionals is very they get slimmer the higher up you go, right? Super regional, it's a lot, you can make one mistake, but that could easily end you, depending on what time of the game it is. The Women's College World Series, you almost can't make no mistakes. So I think if I was a team getting in there, just focus on your fundamentals. Fundamentals are your basic points of what you got to do in those situations there. If you master the fundamentals, you're going to be an extremely tough team to beat week in and week out. And I think that's what the Cajuns do very well of. But their defensive miscues are something I'm concerned about heading forward into this postseason. Now, that's something that they really got to tie down and focus, like defensive errors, how to combat that, just try to figure out ways to win. It doesn't matter how you do it. This is do or die time. You got to get the job done, and that's all there is to it. So they're playing Princeton in that first game. I think they'll handle Princeton. Now, when you talked about Baylor, they did play Baylor earlier this year, in their softball schedule here. So, but that's way early in the year, and these are two different teams, like on different points here. So Baylor was ranked number 22. Baylor won that series. They won at Lansing, so they definitely got a chip on their shoulder coming back in there, thinking they can knock the Cajuns out again here of a series, like knock them out of this regional here. So between Ole Miss and Baylor, I got Baylor beating Ole Miss. I think they will. I think Ole Miss will play Princeton. I think Ole Miss will beat Princeton, knock them out. The Cajuns are going to lose one game in this regional. I think they'll lose one for sure. Now it's how they're going to respond to it because it'd be very crazy for them to go undefeated and make a run through this regional. Be like, look, this is the way it is. I think they'll lose one. They might lose. I would rather them not lose the 1-0 game. I think the 1-0 versus 1-0 game, because if they can win that one, they'll set them up 2-0 and have them. You will avoid that extra game you have to play. So I think Baylor takes it against Ole Miss again. But 1-0, I think they'll play. I think Baylor and UL is going to play each other for this regional championship. I think the Cajuns do end up getting the better of the two against Baylor, but there's gonna be some weather. There's gonna be some weather playing a role in here because it's supposed to rain Thursday and Friday. That could push these games back and make this really more interesting for sure. Because you got to play these games and get ready for a super regional, which could, you know, if you're traveling somewhere, it could be a lot of jet lag and all kind of stuff like that. So that's out of these players' hands. That's out of these coaches' hands. But they're gonna have to figure out ways to get these people ready to play and these women ready to play when they go on the road or wherever else it is. Whoever wins the regional, they're all going to be dealing with the same weather conditions. So, Jalen, what you think about how this is going to go?
Yeah, I agree with you, Chief. I think, well, first of all, I think the obvious one is I think the Cajuns are going to beat Princeton. I also think that Baylor is going to beat Ole Miss. Then the elimination bracket, Ole Miss knocks out Princeton. Cajuns go beat Baylor in the first game. Then Baylor, Ole Miss. I think Baylor handles Ole Miss. And I agree with you, Chief. Baylor, the Cajuns, winner wins the regional, and I think the Cajuns go. I'm gonna say the Cajuns have, even though they got the regional, and everybody like had opinions throughout the season saying, "Oh, they're not going to get it, or they're going to get it, and they're not." I think they had the chip on their shoulder, and I think they'll still have a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to go undefeated through this whole Lafayette regional and go on and beat Baylor and get revenge on Baylor because Baylor won this season series that they had earlier in the year.
So I think you can also look at the point of like the Cajuns lost the Sun Belt Conference Tournament Championship final, which I thought they were going to win it. It's I've said this many times before. It's hard to beat a team three times in a year. Baylor, Baylor hasn't beaten the Cajuns three times. By the time it's done, they would have played the Cajuns if they played let's see, they would play if the Cajuns were to lose, they would play three times in this regional. It's basically a series, basically, if you do end up winning one. So I mean, look, the best team will move on. That's the way it's gonna be. But you got like maybe they would have played each other a total of six times, but they end up losing one. So I mean, we'll basically see at the end of it who's actually better softball team for sure. So that's one that we're gonna look forward to here. The super regional is gonna be however it ends up here. Um, if one of the top eight seeds fall, then it'll go to 9, 10. That's how it basically goes, depending on who's alive at that point, basically. But I think the Cajuns take the Lafayette Regional, being that 13 seed is going to be it's huge for them to host. It's always nice to play at home. The Cajuns do play better at home than they do on the road. So for the Cajuns, their best case scenario is if you get like Florida being, if Florida gets knocked out here, if you look at the Gainesville Regional here and looking ahead, I'm actually going to pull that up real quick here. If you look at that regional here, if they manage to lose in that regional, they're going to come to Lafayette if that's the case, and it's going to be one of those things here. Even though the Cajuns didn't host, they almost hosted last year because of the whole how all that works. So that is something we have to look into and see how that's going to go. So they'll play FGCU, Florida Gulf Coast, FAU, and South Alabama. South Alabama could very well win that region, that Gainesville Regional. So it's going to be interesting to see who does that here. The Cajuns losing the Sun Belt Conference tournament final might have been the best thing for them. Because you lost, you know how it is, and you don't ever want to feel that again here because a lot of these teams can actually go on great runs because they lost a title. So we'll just see what happens there with that there. But I think the Cajuns move on though. I think Sam Landry, Chloe Rosado, they're gonna have to carry a lot of weight here. Pitching has to be. You see a lot of teams with great pitching go deep runs into this. So if the Cajuns have to go to the third or fourth or even fifth pitcher, I've seen in some cases with some softball teams here in the past. You gotta be ready to pitch, and that's going to be one that we're going to be keeping a close eye on. It's how the pitching does here. If and I wouldn't like if they're hitting off a pitcher like two hits back to back, you better pull them out of there because usually that's a sign that they find some kind of matchup and they're exploiting it against you. So that's something. It's like everything's gonna be under the microscope this week for sure and onward till the end of the year for softball. So we'll see what happens with all that there. So let's switch gears and talk about Louisiana Ragin Cajun Baseball here. They're going to take on South Alabama. The whole hashtag South Al sucks is kind of a funny thing. Good baseball rivalry between the two schools. At the Teague at Russo Park. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Like I said, I mentioned with softball, weather's going to play a role in it. Might move some time around here. So it's going to be a fun one. Cajuns need to win one game to outright win the Sun Belt Conference regular season title. Then they'll determine the seeding is basically there. The Cajuns own the tiebreaker against Southern Miss already. They're behind the Cajuns because thanks to Texas State. beating Troy to knock them out of that basically second hole for Southern Miss to move up. Cajuns on the tiebreakers that won the series, but that's going to give them the 1 seed. Southern Miss will probably end up being the 2 seed, depending on how this weekend goes here. Troy might jump into the 2 seed, but we'll see what happens there. So yeah, Jalen, what you think about the Ragin Cajun baseball team coming up?
Yeah, the Cajuns are on a 5-game winning streak. The last Sun Belt series before the Sun Belt tournament against South Al, right here at the Teague, starting on Thursday. I think the Cajuns would take this against South Al. I think they'll. I don't want to give them a sweep, but I'll take 2 or 3. I mean, they already clinched a share of the Sun Belt regular season title. So I think they'll get the outright, and they're a sleeper in this tournament. Or like one of those teams that can really make some noise and knock out some heavy hitters in Division I baseball. So I'm excited for it.
It's kind of curious. I've seen a lot of projections putting him at number 2 seed in the Texas A&M regional, specifically D1 baseball, crediting them there for bracketology purposes. But it's something we're going to watch here. The Cajuns are probably not going to host. I would be very shocked if they were able to. They would have to breeze through the Sun Belt Conference tournament and have some teams lose early for that RPI to jump extremely high like that. But they're at 39 right now. That's way too high for even host anyway. Like a hosting kind of situation that some people were thinking about there. But like I said about a week or two ago, I think that ship has sailed out the dock for sure. So, but yeah, they'll go on the road, travel somewhere, and we'll see. We'll just see where it goes here. I think the Cajuns take 2 or 3 against South Alabama. They might even sweep them, honestly. I was impressed with the way the Cajuns handled Georgia Southern. Um, I mean, they beat them 19-3 on that Friday, followed it up with a 6-4 win on Saturday, and then was able to clinch it out 9-2 Sunday. So the Pats were coming live here. Cajuns pitched better on the road for sure. So that helped at least alleviate some of that Troy loss for sure with them. So yeah, that's something we have to look at there. But I think 2 or 3's, probably the set that the Cajuns probably gonna end up having here. They only need one. They could drop the series and be okay and have the title, but they just gotta get that one. So they get it done on Thursday night at 6 o'clock. All power to them, but that game might probably end up getting pushed back. They might even have a doubleheader on Friday. So we'll see what happens there. Because they got to get ready for the Sun Belt Conference tournament, so that's probably the reason why they probably would pull a doubleheader. I would think for sure, but that weather's gonna get kind of crazy out there. That's gonna be one thing to kind of keep an eye on this weekend. Yeah, prayers to everybody out there in Henderson and Cecilia and everybody that's had to deal with the storms that rolled through this week. Um, just a lot of damage out here in South Louisiana. So uh, prayers out to y'all, but. Um, Yeah, we'll just see what happens though with this regional uh like the road to Omaha basically for the Cajuns. I think they take 2 or 3 though. So Jalen, anything you want to add on to Raging Cajun baseball?
I'm gonna just say I really just want to say go Cajuns. And like I said, I really think that there could be it they like you said, they're not going to host, but they'll be one of the top 2 seeds in any regional. And I think they could really make some noise and make a deep run. So this ain't the same team that was in Coral Gables last year. I can tell you that.
Yeah, even they lost Julian Brock and Carson Rockefeller from last year's team. Yeah, I didn't really know going into the season whether we're gonna have to replace them, but they definitely got the bat still. So I think Deggs has just got better as a coach as the years have gone by, and it's really junior right-hander LP's been fantastic. He's got the fifth average pitching against hitters. I think it's at 158.158 or something like that. Like 15.8%, them coming to the plate. Very good in baseball terms. So, uh, yeah, so that'll be all here for this Raging Cajun edition here at the Fishbowl Radio. We hope you have a great and wonderful night. We'll see you all here next time on the Fishbowl Radio.